Thank you, Cassidy, and thanks for giving us the opportunity to talk about Alaska hydrogen this morning. This is a very, very condensed version of a presentation that we gave to the Japan-Alaska Arctic Symposium back in January, and an hour-long presentation that we gave to the Alaska Hydrogen Working Group earlier this month. So Alaska Marine Power was formed by myself and Simon Harrison, who's sitting down there in the back, about 3 years ago, with a mission to develop the renewable energy resources in Alaska. We've both got oil and gas backgrounds. We're both engineers. We've both had many decades of experience working with BP around the world in major projects development in both the offshore and in Arctic environments. And actually, a lot of these skills are very, very relevant to developing offshore wind. What I'd really like to concentrate on today is to talk about how Alaska can supply low-carbon hydrogen to Japan. They're looking to up to 8% of their requirements by 2040, looking to do this from the early 30s onwards during phased developments, and using Alaska's significant energy resources. Renewable energy resources. The Alaska Hydrogen Project, we're very confident that it's competitive, it's executable, and that it's bankable now. And it can rejuvenate the Cook Inlet as an energy powerhouse. And it's not mutually exclusive from the AKLNG project because both projects use different resources and are looking at different markets. It's a major opportunity for Japanese and US companies. And our role as Alaska Marine Power is actually as a project developer and actually integrating the whole supply chain that's necessary to make this happen. Okay. So Europe is importing low-carbon hydrogen. This is the NOAM project in Saudi Arabia. They're using onshore wind and solar to produce up to 200,000 tons of hydrogen per year, and they will export that as liquid ammonia. This project's currently under construction. It's an $8 billion project, and it's looking to start up next year. And they will export the low-carbon hydrogen to markets in the UK, Germany, and the Netherlands. Japan also wants low-carbon hydrogen. They actually passed a landmark law last October called the Hydrogen Society Promotion Act. They did that because they want to reduce their greenhouse gas emissions. They're looking at a 60% emissions reduction by 2035, and that's from their base level in 2013. They're looking to decarbonize their electrical power. They're looking to import low-carbon hydrogen, blend that with natural gas in their gas turbine power stations. They're also looking to import low-carbon ammonia to blend with coal in their thermal power stations. They're also using hydrogen in their transportation and also to decarbonize their heavy industry, particularly cement and steel manufacture. And they're looking to promote long-term energy growth in a hydrogen technology. And they're throwing a lot of money at this. This is almost $45 billion in subsidies. And they're encouraging Japanese investment in the supply chains. They really want you to partner with Japanese companies. So how they're doing that? Today, the vast majority of the hydrogen used in Japan comes from natural gas. By 43 million tons a year. Their 2040 target is for low-carbon hydrogen is about 12 million tons a year. And they've been very, very pragmatic here. They're not looking for pure green hydrogen. They're looking for hydrogen that meets a certain carbon intensity as about 3.4 kilograms of CO2 per kilogram of hydrogen. So it's about 70% green. And that's a lot easier to achieve than the pure green hydrogen that the Europeans are looking for. The tool they're using for this is Contract for Difference. This is a tool that was actually pioneered in the UK for the offshore wind. What they will actually do for a period of 15 years is pay the difference in the price of the low-carbon hydrogen and grey hydrogen. And this really promotes early movers and allows projects to be funded. It's a very, very flexible mechanism and very, very pragmatic. So Australia is already hard at work on this. Australia is actually looking at about half a dozen projects. This is parameters for 3 of them. They're all looking at Alaska Hydrogen's in the blue, so we're about the same size. We're looking at a phased development. The big difference between Alaska and the Australian projects is they're looking at onshore wind and solar, whereas we're looking at offshore wind and geothermal. All the projects will be looking at exporting the hydrogen either as liquid hydrogen or as ammonia. We do have an advantage over the Australians. We have more subsidies, and we're actually closer to the market, particularly for the projects in Western Australia. All the projects we're looking to start up in the early 2030s. So we feel that Alaska Hydrogen can compete, particularly with the Australians, which are our main competitors. We're looking at about 0.5 to 1 gigawatt for the first phase of power to produce 50 to 100,000 kilotons of hydrogen a year. And then there's potential to go up to 10 times that. What makes Alaska stand apart is great geography. We have a world-class offshore wind resource. We're close to the markets in Japan. We've got a fantastic brownfield site and deepwater port at Nikiski, and we've also got potential for significant hydrogen storage potential. We've got a long history of exporting energy from the Kenai Peninsula, coal, oil and gas in the form of ammonia and LNG. And we've got very good bilateral relationships with Japan. We also do have a fairly large trade imbalance at the moment, so this will help address that in the longer term. The picture here is of a wind turbine installation vessel that's currently being built in the Gulf Coast. The great advantage of actually offshore wind as opposed to onshore wind is one of these vessels has got like a 2,200-ton crane. So you can actually install very large turbines. Our base case is a 15-megawatt turbines, but 20-megawatt turbines are currently on the drawing board and expected to be widely available by the end of the decade. Let's dig into the Cook Inlet wind resource. This is some work that was done by the National Renewable Energy Lab. The darker blue colors are the best wind. You can see there's fantastic wind in the Aleutians, but it's very remote and it tends to get into deep water very quickly. So we're actually concentrating on the excellent wind resource in the lower Cook Inlet. What makes the Cook Inlet stand apart is the gross capacity factor. 64% is abnormally high. It's double what it is at Fire Island, just offshore Anchorage. So basically, the gross capacity factor is, say, for a 100-megawatt wind farm, it would produce on average throughout the year 64 megawatts. Zooming in on the Cook Inlet, we're concentrating on that rectangle that's located between Mount Augustine and the Barren Islands. In that rectangle, there's potential for about 10 gigawatts of power. It's quite a long way back to Nikiski. It's about 110 miles, so that will be a high-voltage DC cable, which is pretty expensive. So we need to get at least half a gigawatt to up to a gigawatt to get the economies of scale necessary. And NREL did a technical economic analysis of a shallow water site, which is next to Augustine, and a deeper water site, which is next to the Barren Islands. And of course, there's significant geothermal potential at Mount Augustine, which is very, very close and allows us to share the transmission infrastructure. NREL actually divides the wind quality into 7 classes for both deep water and shallow water wind farms. And you can actually see that we're in the top 1% of all US offshore wind resources in terms of annual average wind speed. In fact, the shallow water location is literally off the scale. Nobody anticipated a wind of that quality. We have a really good wind all throughout the year, but it does drop off a little bit during the summer months. So why is it so windy? It's all to do with the topography. These are screenshots from my Windy app on my phone, and you can see no matter which way the wind is blowing, the mountains funnel the wind into that yellow circle. So it can be blowing 40, 50 knots in the lower Cook Inlet, be dead calm or just light winds in Anchorage or here in Kenai. So it's really, really unique topography. Let's look at Nikiski in the past. It was a major oil and gas producer with energy exports in the form of LNG and ammonia. It's present, unfortunately, it's a relatively minor oil and gas producer with oil refining and natural gas storage. It sinks about 20 miles south. But in the future, we're looking to transition into an energy powerhouse again, producing a low carbon energy site, exporting liquid hydrogen and liquid ammonia, and also producing a range of e-fuels, including sustainable aviation fuel for the domestic market. As the mayor pointed out, back in the 60s, they were looking for oil in the Cook Inlet. They discovered a lot of gas. Local market was minuscule, so they had to find a market for the gas, and that's when they built the ammonia and the LNG plants. We find ourselves in a very similar position at the moment with the large quantities of renewable energy. It's orders of magnitude bigger than the rail belt can actually accommodate. So we're having to look at the export market again, and that's why we're looking at hydrogen. So what we're looking to do is use offshore wind and geothermal to produce hydrogen from water. We can then liquefy the hydrogen or turn it into ammonia by pulling nitrogen from there. Both of those would serve the export market. The US Department of Energy and the Japanese are currently looking at importing CO2 into the Cook Inlet for sequestration. So when we have a source of CO2, then we can also make a wide range of e-fuels. And we're expecting a huge demand for sustainable aviation fuel at the Anchorage Airport. And that would be used locally. Focusing in on Nikiski, you've got the red dashed line, which is the intermittent power coming in from the lower Cook Inlet. At Nikiski, we can generate hydrogen. The ideal reservoir storage reservoirs are just located south of Nikiski, and the national labs did a study for us. They analyzed 90 reservoirs in the Cook Inlet, and they identified the top 6 that had the ideal characteristics for storing hydrogen. The best reservoirs for CO2 storage are offshore in the Cook Inlet, and again, everything we've got then the capacity to make a range of e-fuels. And there's an existing pipeline that links Nikiski to the airport. Benefits to Alaska for the Kenai Peninsula, a lot of construction jobs and operating jobs, and also significant property revenue. Although the wind farm will actually be located in federal waters, all the production facilities will actually be on the Kenai Borough. And we're talking tens of billions of dollars ultimately. Benefits for Alaska, for Alaskan companies, state revenue, renewable energy storage, and other value-added opportunities. So key messages, just to sum up. Cook Inlet's world-class energy resource can transition the region from a major oil and gas powerhouse to a renewable energy powerhouse. Kenai can export low-carbon hydrogen to Japan, produce a range of e-fuels for the domestic market, and the Alaskan Hydrogen Project is really, we feel it is competitive, particularly with the Australians, executable and bankable, and it's a major opportunity for Japanese and US companies. So, thank you very much.